This Voice of San Diego podcast is brought to you by Manalatus Nelson Murphy, Advertising and Public Relations. As a nonprofit news organization, we depend on our members, foundations, and sponsors like M&M to provide funding to support the investigative journalism you expect from Voice of San Diego. We are very grateful for all of our supporters, and we will recognize them during the show. M&M is run by Tony Manalatus, Bob Nelson, and Kelly Murphy Lamkin, who bring a vast network and decades of experience to developers, public agencies, campaigns, and others. M&M bridges the gap between clients and the people whose influence matters most. M&M develops successful strategies and implements cost-effective tactics to help clients achieve their goals. The firm specializes in public affairs PR and advertising, with an emphasis on media relations, crisis communications, community engagement, and cross-platform marketing. Our reporters at Voice of San Diego have heard from Tony and Bob a lot over the years. Tony, Bob, and Kelly are supporters of Voice of San Diego. Learn more about their firm at mnmadpr.com. And if you like Voice of San Diego's work and want to become a sponsor too, contact us at development@voiceofsandiego.org.
Hey, welcome to the Voice of San Diego podcast. My name is Scott Lewis. I'm here with my friend Andrew Keatts.
What's up, my man?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Sarah, Libby.
Hey.
Hi.
So you guys got me good last week.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
too.
I was so by way of explanation, I took you guys really came after me because I stopped Twitter, and then you're like, "Whoa, you didn't really disconnect. You went on Instagram." Like as though those were the same things. Here's by way of explanation.
Okay, I have a rebuttal though that's ready to go.
Twitter.
What we need is more explanation.
Twitter is amazing. All right, I love it so much.
It's bad.
I
don't like it.
They could change Twitter and make it so that bullets come out of Twitter and hit my eye, like little tiny bullets, and I'd be like, oh, that's not good, but I guess I'll give it a try.
When I complain about it and earnestly state that I think it has made the world worse and my own brain worse, you get visibly angry.
No, it's true. You're right. I'm not saying it's good. I say I like it.
You get very mad when any reporter says a bad word about
That's like 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I had to stop because it was so bad last week. It was or 2 weeks ago. But also I was taking vacation. I already planned. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to stop. And then you're like, well, you went on Instagram. Well, I went on Instagram because Instagram's wonderful, and I discovered how to use it. And there's all these things that are beautiful about it.
You're right, and yet. So Instagram is wonderful, but for a long time, all of your grams were about how do I use Instagram to fill the void of Twitter?
Yes.
Much like our podcast, which is also now about that.
I'm learning how to use Instagram because I'm off of Twitter. It wasn't like, here's an awesome picture of my kids.
There were those, though, and
those came.
That was like the first day. I was still like, it takes you like 3 days in vacation to like wean off of all of the stuff. Don't you agree?
Yes, but not everyone brings people along on those 3 days.
What is Instagram? You guys are like, it's so funny. You guys are like making fun of me for talking about myself on Instagram. Like that's like making fun of, like that's what it's for.
Well,
I welcome your dog and cute kid pictures.
Picking on me for talking about myself on social media is come on. That's crazy. That's what it's for.
I don't know that we're picking on you for talking about yourself, but which topic about yourself you chose to share.
Like two things. So that's my dog was all over surfing. There was a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, that's all fine.
That would have been great.
That's perfect Instagram.
Had that
content.
been the content, then it wouldn't have been an issue.
I think you guys are just dealing with feelings that are coming up about how much you dislike me.
It's possible.
And you saw me. You're like, oh, we're not going to see him for a week. And then you saw me come on Instagram and you're like, oh, guess that's not
this
happening.
guy.
I can't rule that out.
Well, you're not wrong.
Can't rule that out.
Well, so I come back to Twitter, and it was good because it was like I feel like I had a healthier perspective. I didn't jump in. But
here's the problem with Twitter, because that happened for me when I went on my vacation and without talking about it, just stopped using Twitter. And here's the thing, I posted on there that I was going to be away because people sometimes actually send important things like correction requests and stuff through there. I wanted there to be clear.
Did you think people were gonna like
make no mistake, everyone missed you.
Send the cops to your house? Like, Scott, I haven't seen any tweets.
No one has tweeted. He hasn't tweeted
this is not
days.
fair. Sometimes people come at me. I just wanted to know, like I always reply. I wanted people to see that I had been on break.
It was very important.
There's a lot of people do that, say I'm out for a week or something. I thought that was normal.
Yeah, no, it's definitely essential. But getting back to what I was going to say is just that. So I went on my vacation. I didn't use social media, and I came back feeling very cleansed and happy. And it disappears in an hour of being exposed to it again. Yeah. It's gone right away. There's no grace period.
No, there was
none.
This week there was, because they saved those kids in Thailand. There was a few things that were just kind of nice, and it was like there was a few days, and then the UT posts on Twitter, dogs, let's be honest, dogs are parasites. Click here. And so I'm like everyone else in the world, I rage click on it because dogs are not
They're the
bad.
best.
And it's just a normal, classic sort of Chris Reed rumination of, actually they're evolutionarily designed to be parasitic in nature because they hang around and get their food, and that's how they work.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's not fine.
The word I would use is symbiotic. But in any case, this was so over the top, it actually didn't upset me even a little. Like, I feel like I have a...
Wait, you posted it. You're the first person who posted it on our internal chat saying, WTF, the UT is the worst.
No, that's not what I said. I just lolled at it. I think I said LOL.
I don't know.
And a tweet. But it didn't even bother me because, like, it was so transparently a troll. It was so... It's like
the cliche you use to describe, like, the ultimate troll.
Exactly. Like, there's a sweet spot. You got to get in something that's like it's very unpopular.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
If they owned it as a troll.
Oh, yeah. Well, they haven't. But I mean,
but see that's the.
People have been on social media. Dogs are very popular there.
Yeah. So if they come out and say like, "Oh, come on, guys," like, of course we, but they ended up getting. So they went through this like whole cycle. At first, they're like, "Woohoo, we did it! We hit the sweet spot." There's tons of people reacting and thinking about our
That's what matters.
Provoking column about how dogs are leeches on humanity. and then the cycle switches and they're like, wow, you guys are really mad about this. You need to chill out and get some perspective. And now they've switched to retweeting all of the now hundreds of thousands of people dunking on them across the country, including like Darth and the dictionary.com and all these places. And they're like, see, now they're back to delighting. It's like a cycle of like hatred and sadness to look at how many people are reacting to our work.
Yeah, there's a sad narrative in there about like at first you like it and then you're like, stop being mean to me, but then you can delight in it again. But I don't know. The dogs aren't parasites.
Well, we are all these cells trying to survive, and
to the extent that dogs have
no
parasites,
agency.
So is the humanity.
Well, and I brought up kids, so Chris actually responded to me because I said, like, if dogs are parasites, like kids are too. Like, they're cute, and we take care of them because they're cute. And
his response, he was the most vulnerable Chris Reed has ever been.
Yeah, no. So he emailed me later, and he said, look. Kids, though, dogs don't have like terrible 2s and 3s. Like I don't think the parallel matches up. And I'm like, have you ever had a puppy? Because puppies are terrible sometimes. And yet somehow we still take care of them. And kids,
the hardest part in any dog ownership cycle is once they're fully house trained.
Yeah.
And then have a period of defiance where they backslide, which happens with all dogs.
Yeah.
And you never see it coming. You think you're in the clear. You think you've cleaned up your last accident. And then you get like, nope, I am a master of my own.
Yeah. Like if like that's where it breaks down a little bit because they ruin your life for a while.
They really do.
But you still like love them because they're so cute and cuddly and stuff.
Have we talked about any public policy yet?
Well,
let's get on to this.
Hold on. So, all right, next week we don't have a special guest. We're going to have Rivard come in today to talk about his great stories on water bills he's been doing in conjunction with NBC San Diego. So stay tuned for that. Next week we have our live podcast Wednesday, July 18th, starting at 5:30. Get there, get your tickets. They're free, but we just want to make sure we have enough capacities to sign up. You can find that online on Facebook and also at voiceofsandiego.org. We have 2 special guests coming on stage for this live podcast with us. Lorena Gonzalez-Fletcher, the Assemblywoman, and Mark Cafferty, the CEO of the Economic Development Corporation. Friend of the podcast who we should all have, should be good banter, but we're also going to involve the crowd, have some fun, and so that'll be at Whistle Stop at 5:30.
Mark and Lorena also get along with each other, so I think that'll make for a good.
I think he was worried that they had they were clashing a little bit more these days, but sounds like she was excited to see him, so works out. Good. They were talking about drinking a little bit, so they might be a little loose.
There you go.
So that should be fun.
And that worries me.
Why?
Don't know. I don't want to be peer pressured when there's a microphone in front of me.
Oh, to drink?
Yeah.
Just don't drink like me.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your story this week. The results from the San Diego City Council's 4th District primary became official. Monica Montgomery finished in first place over incumbent Myrtle Cole. Now, not only is Myrtle Cole the incumbent, she's the city council president. It's an incumbent, and an incumbent hasn't lost a city council seat in how long is it?
Since 92.
Wow.
It's a very long time.
She came in second place. She's an incumbent city council president. Literally could not be better situated to not have trouble in a primary, and yet she had a lot of trouble. She came in second. You asked Myrtle Cole, so set the scene. You go and find her in the district. She's showing up at some events.
Yeah, she was at a community cleanup, and I prearranged that I'd have a little bit of time to talk to her, which was actually the first time I really had an opportunity to do a one-on-one interview with Council President Cole. And I asked her what happened in the campaign. You said the results came in, you lost. What happened?
She said, quote, "We didn't mount a campaign. We had no ground campaign. I didn't even have a campaign manager. The primary took us by surprise." Wow. Indeed it did.
Yeah. There's potentially a contradiction in there. There might not be as well, but it's like, well, did you not try or were you taken by surprise?
Yeah, it's absolutely a contradiction.
I don't know about absolutely. I think you could say like, well, we didn't try, but we didn't try because we didn't think it would be even close. Yeah. So, but in any case, there's some tension there.
Well, I think the other point is like she's saying it.
Yes.
Because she's trying to make the point of like, look, we didn't do so well, even though we didn't, we did pretty well, even though we didn't try.
Yeah, and
then it's coming back, but you're also admitting with that.
Yeah, I think that's the more important tension, is that in attempting to make an excuse for the bad perception that you've lost, you've essentially said, we didn't think it was important to go talk to voters and convince you that we deserve your support.
Right.
That there's almost a...
Which fits with the narrative that you sort of started to pull together from people in the community, that she hasn't been there in the community, especially since she got elected council president.
Yeah, so I talked to a lot of people. I spent a couple days in the district talking to as many people as I could, popping into a barbershop and going to community meetings and the cleanup that Myrtle Cole had. I talked to a bunch of people who were there, and I went to a couple meetings with Monica Montgomery and just listened to what people had to say. And there were a few things that were coming back to me unprompted. This wasn't me asking people and them saying, yes, that sounds right. This was just asking people what's happening in the district, and they were unprompted providing the same responses, which was, one was that she's just not in the community enough. They don't see her. They don't hear from her. They don't feel like she's hearing their concerns and reacting to them. The other was that they think something had changed since she became council president, and this was something that people felt was consistent with what happened when Tony Young, the council member for the district before her, became council president, that once people have this council president position, they're pulled in too many different ways and they lose their attention on the district. And then the other thing that a lot of people said was that while they weren't thrilled with Myrtle Cole per se, she wasn't necessarily their biggest issue as much as she was a proxy for this issue that they've had for years, which is groups and individuals who've been in charge who are constantly talking about big changes that are going to happen that for one reason or another never quite actually materialize.
This is something we've seen play out with the Jacob Center too, which I think also can be used sometimes as a proxy for, just the establishment, city hall, government type. I think people there have expressed a lot of similar concerns that they've promised that they'll do all these things and deliver all these, amenities and infrastructure that they haven't seen.
Yeah. So on that point, this meeting I went to in Skyline Hills, there was a pretty tense exchange between a Cole staffer who was there giving a typical city council briefing on, all the things that they're working on, handing out these newsletters that they do. And one of the things that he said was, we're doing a conversation with City Attorney Maura Elliott at the Jacob Center. And the chair of this group got very angry that Councilmember Cole would hold a community meeting at the Jacob Center. And they had this back and forth for a while about how bad the Jacob Center was and that it's exploited the community and lost sense of its mission, and that it is offensive to the community even to hold community events there at all. So it's not even these aren't even like similar ideas as much as completely related ideas.
I think the tensions that you laid out were so useful, because if we were just a stranger coming in and looking at this race and you saw, a council president is maybe in trouble and no incumbent has lost in years, you would think probably, there's some kind of wave happening and like maybe she's a Democrat, but Republicans are, in this surge election, or there was some sort of scandal. These are both like two Black women Democrats who probably would vote the same way on every issue.
Most issues, certainly, yeah. And so, or you would think there was some big thing to latch onto, one big particular issue. Right. And in this case, I think that narrative was aided by the fact that Council President Cole did have one big major scandal recently that grew to a citywide significance that people remember, which is she had these very controversial comments about racial profiling when she said essentially that police were justified in pulling over Black people in the district at disproportionate rates because it's Black people who commit crimes. She later apologized for that. And while, again, many people I talked to did not like those comments and certainly are continuing to be upset about them, and it's definitely one of the reasons that they do not support her, it wasn't the only thing. It wasn't even necessarily the most prevalent thing that people brought up. It came up a lot, but just as much as people saying she's not in the district, she doesn't talk to us, we don't see her.
But there are some mega sort of meta-politics issues that will now start to potentially get involved in this race. And Monica Montgomery, the challenger, is sort of signaling some things that she might be willing to do, and that other interests might be interested in helping her do. So one of them was this issue that you were the first to report, that she supports sub-district elections for the San Diego Unified School District. Now, the San Diego Unified School District is a separate agency, but its charter is chartered by the City of San Diego's charter. And so to change how elections work at the San Diego Unified School District, you would have to change the city's charter, which starts with usually a city council measure. So she spoke on 2 issues this week at the city council, one on creating an independent agency to oversee the police. And then she also spoke on this issue and kind of made a point along those lines about her own narrative about running in the district, about the district dynamics and needing to be home and representative of the district.
I believe that district elections are very important for communities like mine, that oftentimes our needs get engulfed in the needs of the entire city and are often not addressed and not met.
And so that was one way to think about it. But then there was an argument, and this is the first I've heard of this. So Sharon Whitehurst Payne from the school district was there presenting at the city council too, and she's putting their idea forward, which is just to do term limits. And she said on this other issue, on this district elections, where we would just do district elections as opposed to making people run in the district and then run city-wide for the trustee spot. She said that one reason they have to do that is because so many kids leave their local district to go attend other schools in other parts of the city, that you should be able to have a say in all of the people who represent all of the city school district, which is a new one I hadn't heard before.
I hadn't heard that either.
So this was the first I'd heard Monica really hit yet another person sort of representing the district, and she kind of blasted Whitehurst Payne in a nice, interesting, subtle way. Here's what she said about that.
Many of our kids are bussed out based on what we perceive as a lack of performance from our schools. And I do believe that if we have a representative that better represents our community on the board, then that won't be as much of a problem, and we can build up neighborhood schools.
It's kind of an it's kind of an interesting argument from a school district trustee when their whole goal is to keep students in their neighborhood schools and to make the schools like such high quality that people stay in their neighborhood, but say like,
it's their entire plan.
We need to represent the whole city because so many people leave their neighborhood.
Yeah, their stated goal is to do that. But
and it reminds me, it's just like when we had Ryan Klumpner and Carol Kim in here a couple weeks ago, and Carol's argument was, Carol said, well, you want somebody to have not just represent their district, but the entire city, to which Sara said, well, that applies to the city council as well. And I think this argument that Sharon Whitehurst Payne made, you could again break with the city council analogy, which is, yeah, like I live in Golden Hill, but I work in downtown, and I used to work in Point Loma, and my wife works in Rancho Bernardo. And so, yes, I just like you don't live your entire existence in one city council district, you also don't live students don't live their entire existence in one sub-district of the school.
Yeah, there's logic on all sides of this, but obviously we're not talking about logic in the sense that there's just mega politics at play. And what Montgomery is saying there is going to be attractive to a lot of other groups that were also upset about some of the moves that Myrtle Cole had made to sort of shun some of the conservatives on staff, so on the city council. So we'll see if that materializes. All right, in the second part of the show, we are going to talk about a water billing scandal that we and NBC have found some more information about in the city of San Diego. And for now, this has been in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo.
Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit news organization. We depend on sponsors and members to help fund the investigative reporting you expect from us. Here's the message from Voice of San Diego sponsor, Lang Strategic Communications.
This is Rachel Lang with Lang Strategic Communications, and this is our sponsored podcast, Voice for an Evolving San Diego. So I have with me here world famous soccer pro, Landon Donovan.
Former soccer pro.
Well, you're still in the game though.
And household famous.
So now you're teaching and you're coaching and you're part of the team that's trying to bring MLS to San Diego. That's the Soccer City program. So I think we're making the best case for soccer right now in San Diego with the World Cup. Let's talk about the World Cup and what we've been seeing in San Diego. By the numbers I've seen, San Diego's the number 2 market in the nation for World Cup viewing, and we don't even have a pro soccer team. So What do you think accounts for that enthusiasm, and are you surprised by it at all?
I'm not surprised by it. There are a few things that happen, and I remember as I was playing in San Jose and in Los Angeles, throughout the World Cups, I'd always see San Diego show up on all these ratings numbers throughout the years. And when I thought back to my childhood, I grew up 2 hours northeast of here in San Diego, and almost every weekend we would come to San Diego because this is where all the soccer tournaments and games and fields, et cetera, were.
Right.
So you have a mix of lots of youth players that play soccer here, who play soccer here.
Right.
And then you have this proximity to the border, which lends itself to lots of Latin, in particular Mexican families who love soccer as well. And that mix makes San Diego a soccer hotbed in this country.
Listen to the rest of this sponsored podcast at the end of the show.
We are back. Our hero of the week.
There was a fantastic piece of journalism in the UT last week by Greg Moran about a man named Barry Jameson. So while he was in prison, Jameson brought a lawsuit alleging that his prison doctor gave him substandard care when he contracted Hep C. 3 times a trial court threw out the case, and 3 times Jameson represented himself and won on appeal, until in 2014 he got a trial, which was dismissed after opening statements. And he lost because he could not afford a court reporter, which was required to have a transcript of that trial court. And courts in California have stopped funding court reporters in civil cases. So the appeals court required the transcript that he could not afford to produce. But he's going to get an opportunity to go back to court now after the California Supreme Court ruled last week that requiring poor people to fund their own court reporter effectively violated state laws, guaranteeing that all residents receive equal access to justice. And based on the ruling, court reporters must now be made available to poor litigants.
That's interesting. So you could take that logic out further and say, in the same spirit that you need a lawyer to be a public defender, should you have like public advocates that you can access if you have a civil lawsuit you want to bring somehow? That we have pro bono lawyers out there, but should there be a more organized system to bring pro bono lawsuits out?
Don't know.
Anyway, that seems significant.
Yeah, and Greg Moran, who wrote the story, also did a great tweet storm about just how unique and the challenges that this man had to overcome, writing from prison and representing himself, and just how rare his victory really is. So you should check that out on top of the story.
Yeah, it was also, there is some precedent that this builds on, which is there are fee waivers for the indigent that are attempted to level the field, and that if you can't pay certain filing costs and that sort of thing, it had already previously been determined that those would be barriers to equal access to justice, and this is now considered alongside those.
Yeah, it hasn't been that long that California courts have been requiring people to pay for court reporters. I think,
right.
Leading up to the recession and maybe even a little before them, things went haywire, and like they were holding court in San Bernardino in classrooms and bringing in retired justices to hear cases just because civil court had ground to a halt because of all these cost issues.
One of my friends is a lawyer, and he's pointed out, we had been doing this in San Diego.
This is Rivard, by the way.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. And what's more disturbing, or equally disturbing, to not having a record for your appeal is you don't even have a record of if something terrible happened in the courtroom, if the lawyer misinterpreted the law, if the judge said something slanderous or ignorant.
If someone perjured themselves.
Exactly. So it's important for a whole number of reasons, and my friend was very excited.
We broke that story that they stopped recording it, right?
That was
transcribing.
In family court.
Okay.
So it's become an issue in family court in San Diego. People who have custody issues and divorce cases and all these kinds of things, they've stopped using court reporters. And it's this same issue that it creates this 2-tiered justice system. And one is for people who can afford a court reporter, and one is for people who can't.
All right. Good job. Thank you. Our GOAT of the week.
You lose! Good day, sir!
All right, so the San Diego High School District is having a tough time right now. The district last month decided to plug its deficit by digging into reserves. That will take the reserves from $13 million all the way down to about $2 million in 2021. The board there has also been feuding for a few years now, first over raises that some board members say led to this deficit, and recently over a memo that instructed board members that any questions they have for staff should be submitted in writing in advance. You shouldn't be able to just ask questions of staff in public meetings. Other board members also opposed a plan to buy a $4,000 camera so that video of board meetings could be posted online. Another board member said that one problem the board is facing is that the public attempts to ask too many questions during public meetings, and that they should instead try to take care of that outside of public meeting time. And one board member there is facing a recall campaign, and the superintendent has abruptly resigned in May.
Not going well.
It's not going well at San Diego High School District. That was all from Jesse Marks, wrote that up in the North County report this week, and a lot of it was based on some iterative reporting by the Coast News.
Also the Del Mar Times.
And the Del Mar
Good
Times.
job.
Yes.
There's North County journalism alive still. The UT took over the North County Times and said we'll protect it, and disappeared it, ghosted it.
Memory hold it.
And so someday we'll hopefully have the important information infrastructure that this community deserves in those parts of the county. But for now, I would like to switch to a topic we did this week. Our friend Rivard, who's here. Hello, Rye.
Hey, what's up?
Did a couple pieces in conjunction with NBC San Diego about water bills. Now, we have heard for the last 2 years about this sort of issue where residents were complaining about these extraordinary water bills they were getting from the city of San Diego. What was that, and what's new that we've learned this week?
So last year, a number of people across the city started contacting media organizations and saying, we've seen these unusually high bills. And there are some innocent explanations for unusually high bills, and then there are some more, I'd say, nefarious explanations for unusually high bills.
Slab leaks?
You could have a leak. A leak would be a reasonable explanation. If you have a new landscaping, that's another reasonable explanation. If you filled your pool, that's a reasonable explanation. But we found out in February that there was a fairly unreasonable explanation for at least about 350-some bills in the city. There was this errant employee who read meters for the city who was misreading them or falsifying his meter readings. And so when the city confessed to that, that prompted a series of audits that are ongoing of the water department.
So let me just be clear here. So there's still right now just people that just drive for the city out to everybody's house, everybody's apartment building, walks around, looks for the meter, and reports back what it says.
Yes, and they're called meter readers.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Which
just how it
sort of
works.
sounds like a robot.
Yeah.
Well, the city is hoping to replace those people with essentially robots. They want to automate this process with something called a smart meter. And one of the theories about why there were these bill spikes is that maybe there's something going wrong with this smart meter technology. We don't know yet in our reporting whether the bill spikes can be blamed on the smart meters, but in the course of going through all this stuff, we found that this $60 million smart meter program has its own problems that the city has attempted to hide from us for several months.
Well, let's talk about that in a second. So, but first, you found out there were...
That's foreshadowing. But let's put it off the table for a second. But it's a tease. We'll get there.
Thanks.
For you readers, listeners.
Just like the annotations.
Just know that it'll be coming.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to continue on with another related topic.
So we tried to find out if there were systemic problems across the city. So we asked for data, NBC and Voice San Diego, from the water department, billing records. And they were reluctant to release those records because it has customer information. So we said, don't, like addresses and names. So we said, don't give that to us. We'll just take the data. It took them several months to do that. When they did it, we found out that the spreadsheets that they gave us had been created in some cases before we asked for them and in some cases shortly after we asked for them. And so we were...
Meaning they really didn't need to delay it for several months?
We don't know for sure. It could have just been an Excel spreadsheet they had sitting around that they pasted some stuff into. That's a possibility. But it does appear that they had a better capability of producing data than they led us to believe.
So you, instead of relying on complaint-based research to see what had happened, what you wanted to do is say, like, let's analyze all these bills and see just how many people actually saw these sort of outrageous spikes.
Right, because the Water Authority has pushed back. There's been two different kinds of complaints over the past couple of years. One from sort of low-income advocates for low-income water customers saying, look, we have some customers who get in sort of sideways with the water department, and they get behind on their bills, and they have trouble paying them off, and it's a whole weird process of trying to prove what you owe and don't owe, and then paying back what you owe or might not owe. And then we also had the complaints from wealthier communities, which touched off the audits. People finally seemed to pay attention, where there were bill spikes in wealthier communities. And the city water department was always in a position of being able to say, well, this is anecdotal. These are isolated cases. So we tried to say, how isolated is some of this stuff? And what our analysis found was, yes, it's somewhat small, but we found, somewhere in the neighborhood of hundreds, if not thousands, of pretty dramatic bill spikes from one month to the next of over, where bills doubled or sometimes tripled or sometimes quintupled.
And you did, in your methodology, I thought this was an interesting decision. You chose only from people whose bills were at the average of monthly bills. So these weren't sweeping in a bunch of people who had effectively no water bill at all one month and then had a five-fold increase from something close to zero. These were people who you eliminated that very low population of people who spent very little, which might have distorted the numbers, and instead counted only people who were around the average of the monthly bills.
Yeah, we attempted to be quite conservative because if you didn't attempt to be conservative, you just looked at bill spikes of any kind, there'd be thousands and thousands and thousands. But in our conservative approach, we found hundreds, if not several thousand.
Okay. Now I'd like to hear about these smart meters. So go back. So the idea being, let's stop sending people out. Mm-hmm. Let's give a little chip, Internet of Things type thing to these water meters, and they can just beam the information and tell us how much water somebody used and then charge them for it.
Right. And it's a great technology because you can detect some problems. You can detect a leak, for instance. If you're right now, a meter reader, a staffer who goes out to read meters, goes, basically every 2 months. And so if you have a leak, you could be, paying for water that you never really use because a pipe broke. And this way you can track sort of in real time your water use. So there's a lot of different advantages to a smart meter.
So they
Fitbit for water.
Essentially a Fitbit for water. And they have been working for years.
Is that something you're proud of, that you came up with that?
No.
That was bad.
It was pretty good.
No.
Because you could monitor your use, and you could say, like, oh, I'm using too much water. You can monitor it that way.
I don't think you would have access to it as a consumer, would you?
No, you would.
Oh, okay. Good.
There's an online portal.
So they deployed this technology or just tested it?
Haltingly. It's behind schedule. They're supposed to, eventually get it out to like 280,000 customers. But now, it's in the sort of 15,000 range of customers who actually have this technology installed and working. Other people have sort of incompletely installed smart meters that are have some of the technology necessary to be smart, but are not hooked up so that they're actually smart. And it's kind of weird that the city would sort of half-heartedly install a new technology, but they have, and they are.
All right, so tell us about this company that provides this service, this vendor.
So one of the things we looked at was, are there problems with these smart meters? And the city said, nah, nothing significant. And then turns out, back in 2016, one of the sales representatives for this company, Mueller, which is based in Atlanta and makes a product called the Hershey meter, said, oh yeah, we have some glitches with some of our products. And then last year, the company told its shareholders, we're going to have to set aside $9.8 million because we have some problems with some of our products. And it appears that, the water department has been buying some of these products. Despite months of questions and data requests, they still haven't fully explained to us what they have and have not bought, what they have and have not
installed and what is and is not broken.
And we are not the only local water district to buy from this company, nor are we the only local water district to buy from this company and experience problems with this company.
Yeah, Padre Dam Municipal Water District, which is based in Santee and serves part of East County, they have been working for a similar amount of time on a smart meter program. They bought some of these Mueller meters, and they ran into problems a couple of years in remarkable contrast to the opacity of the city's water department. When we called them and said, hey, looks like you've been having problems with these smart meters, the general manager said, yeah, we can talk to you about it. So we went out there, NBC and Voice of San Diego, interviewed him. He's like, yeah, we got a bunch of problems. Brought some of his top staffers. They explained to us what the problems are and said, yeah, these meters are a bad product. We don't want to use them. They represent poorly the water district, so we're going to replace them.
So they signed another contract with a replacement meter, and as routine maintenance needs to take place for one of these meters, they just replace it with a new one, basically.
Yeah, they essentially ate some crow over that one, but they at least admitted it, and that was really nice.
I'm sensing a little frustration. What's the deal with the water department?
I think there's pretty widespread frustration, I think, among members of the public. I think some members of the Faulkner administration, and I think certainly among the media that's been looking into this, because they give very convoluted and not helpful answers. They have, it's not to complain about the job, but this is a kind of service that's existed since the Roman Empire, and they still haven't figured out a way to do it well in the city of San Diego, and it's frankly embarrassing. And
so as a representative example, you uncovered an email between a PUD director regarding a piece of information that either would or would not be shared with an oversight committee.
Yeah, so Vic Bionis is the new director of PUD. He took over in October, and there's a variety of oversight bodies. The city council oversees the water department. The administration has some oversight roles, and then there's the independent rates oversight committee, which it has its own problems. They sometimes can't get a quorum to meet, and sometimes when you try and talk to them, they are not entirely very helpful. But nonetheless, they're supposed to be providing oversight, and so they asked the water department. They said, "Hey, can you come give a presentation on some of these customer service issues?" And Bionis was instructing his staff on how to prepare these presentations. He said, be, and this is a quote, be vague. He said, be, quote, vague. And then he said, quote, no need to allow them to focus on giving us direction on how to improve.
God forbid an oversight agency weigh in on how the agency it oversees could improve.
It's quite stunning. I thought what was so interesting about it is he said improve. If he'd said, don't tell us what to do, don't tell us how to do it.
Micromanage.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I would have been like, okay, well, that's interesting. And that's like noteworthy. But when you say, don't tell us how to improve, that's just, to me, stunning, because it shows that you don't even think there's anything wrong. And obviously there's some things that are wrong. Now, we don't quite know the magnitude of them, and that's partly their fault for not being transparent. But there are certainly problems. So there are certainly ways to improve them, and to not realize that as the head of a department that does something as important as the water department is just stunning to me.
So one of the things I was curious about is, are they like reluctant to admit any vulnerability about this because they don't want to lose the program, the smart meter program? Like there's like some sort of bigger concern that some flash in the pan will be sensationalized in a way that will endanger the whole, switch over?
Yeah, and a couple months after Bionis made that remark in an email, another one of his staffers went in and actually told the Oversight Committee. The Oversight Committee was debating whether they should recommend an audit, not do an audit. They don't have really, seems like, the power to do that, but they can recommend an audit. And one of the assistants, one of the deputies in the department said, even one potentially negative comment regarding the smart meter program could injure the project before we have full liftoff. And to me, that suggests the answer to your question is yes. They're worried about killing the program because of questions before it takes off. But, contrast that with what happened at Padre Dam, where they went full bore into the project, found some errors, and then fixed them. You don't have to be criticism or error free to still be doing the right thing.
There's a lot of things in this world that are really crippled by that. I have a little thing I do a lot talking about it, but you should just be able to admit you made a mistake or that something's wrong, and you're going to be a lot better and cleaner with the world about it if you could just go forward and address it and hear what people's ideas are to help you get there.
So what was the piece you had about information that was given or not given to the auditors themselves?
So, when we had asked for data on billing records, and we finally got them after a couple months, and we saw that the Excel spreadsheets that the data was on had been created, months before we'd gotten it, we thought, maybe they had this data and they just delayed giving it to us for some reason. And then we saw the city auditor gave some comments to KPBS and said, I'm going to have to delay my audit by a couple weeks because I've had, some trouble getting this data. But it's not the fault of the water department. There was just, technical difficulties. They had some problem with their computer system, pulling all this data, which, as an aside, if you have problems with the system that keeps all of your billing records on it and you can't pull data off of it, that seems like its own problem the auditor might want to look into.
Doesn't seem like a particularly smart program.
Hey-o.
Well, this would be
because of the meters. They're called the smart meters.
Well, this would be just even basic consumer
They're really
records.
setting themselves up.
Yeah, never call anything. Yeah.
But so anyway, the auditor says, it wasn't because of any intransience and delay from the water department. And so I emailed the auditor and I said, Mr. Auditor, I think you should be aware that if you look at the metadata on this Excel spreadsheet that you got from the city, it's possible that these records were available to you long before you got them, as they were potentially available to us long before we received them.
Well, I think I speak on behalf of the entire team at Voice San Diego that we really enjoy it when you are fired up and spicy rye.
There's a move Rye does in his writing I really like. He likes to bounce people's words back at them.
Oh yeah.
That's like a real tick he's got. I like in this one the quote that we don't want them give them reason to tell us how to improve was immediately followed with they needed a lot of improvement.
There was room for
improvement. So I read it. I was just like, classic Rye. That's a Rye right there.
He has a way.
He talks like that in the office too. He does it to you in real time.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll be talking to myself in my office, and then he'll say it to me through the wall.
Yeah.
Rye, you can find his work at voiceofsandiego.org, of course, and the companion video and other work at NBC7 San Diego. Tom Jones over there helped a lot, got a lot of this going.
Great guy.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been the Voice of San Diego podcast again. Remember, next week we have our live podcast, Whistle Stop, 5:30, Wednesday, July 18th at the Whistle Stop Bar. And it should be a good show. Should have a lot of fun with the audience and with our guests. And you'll want to sign up to make sure you get a spot.
And now back to a message from our sponsor, Lang Strategic Communications.
I'm Rachel Lang of Lang Strategic Communications, and with me is Landon Donovan. Are you hearing anything from the league, the MLS league, can you glean anything from what you know as a former MLS player that you can tell us about San Diego's prospects for securing a team?
Sure. The league absolutely want to be in San Diego, and they have made that very clear, both publicly and privately. I've been a part of this league in one way or another since I was 19 years old, and I have a very close relationship with the commissioner and many other high-ranking people there. Mm-hmm. They want to be here, but more than just wanting to be here, they want to be a partner with this Soccer City group of people, and they want a stadium solution that makes sense for them. So as Soccer City was putting together this proposal, we had to check off 3 boxes. Is it a good market? Yes, we checked that off. Do they have a good ownership team? We like to think of ourselves as a good ownership team. Mike Stone, Nick Stone, Steve Altman, Peter Seidler, prominent names in this community. Right. And 3, is there a stadium solution? Well, we didn't have a stadium solution. We don't have a stadium solution yet. If people want to make this a reality and they vote yes on Soccer City on November 6th, we will have a stadium solution. And I think this would be the ultimate experience for San Diegans and something that would positively impact people here for generations to come.
Sure. Now, can you go a little deeper into, for people who aren't living this day in, day out, a little bit about why someone else can't just pick up the mantle? Why is it that there's a team, a selected, designated team for this, and why, for instance, if Soccer City didn't make it through on the ballot, then SDSU or someone else can't just pick up the mantle?
Well, there are a few reasons. One, Major League Soccer are in a position of strength and leverage because they have 10 cities vying for their final 2 expansion spots. So if you don't tick off all those boxes, they can say, sorry, but Austin's a great city, or San Antonio's a great city, or Phoenix is also a great city, and they have a great ownership group, and they have a stadium already built. So you have to be able to tick off all those boxes. What's equally important for Don Garber and Major League Soccer is having a group of people who they trust, who they know have the financial wherewithal, and who have a track record of being successful. Sure. And so they made it very clear early on that this was the group of people they wanted to be associated with.
Right.
And nobody else has taken the step forward to try to be that person. But at this point, the Soccer City team have the exclusive rights to a Major League Soccer team here in San Diego. So if this group doesn't get it, then the league will just move on to some other city.
Right. And there are some pretty good cities in the running. So I don't think it's definitely a lock for us, right? Unless we can deliver the project that they're seeing and so excited about. I know on the Soccer City team, for members like you and your fellow World Cup player and champion, Shannon McMillan, Juan Carlos Rodriguez from Univision, a lot of your excitement isn't just the Major League Soccer team, but the whole system for youth development that comes along with it. Can you talk a little bit about that and what Soccer City and what having an MLS team would bring to San Diego youth?
So we haven't had an opportunity, unfortunately, to talk a lot about this yet, but we're just getting the opportunity to now. It's what I'm most passionate about, what Shannon is most passionate about in this project is we will have the opportunity to create a youth academy for hundreds and hundreds of young San Diegans to play soccer here and not have to pay a cent for it. Right. And I think of myself growing up, if I didn't have someone sponsoring me and driving me around other than my family, I wouldn't have been the player I am. I wouldn't have made it. So there are too many kids now that don't play soccer because they can't afford it, and that should not be the case. We will have the opportunity to fully fund every single child who comes through to play in our academy, and we will get to develop them not only as soccer players, but as people. Shannon and I are both parents first, and we care about that aspect as much as we do the soccer aspect. So that will be a vital piece to this and very enjoyable for us. And I think if you have the chance to positively impact children, then it's a pretty good legacy to leave. And we don't have to create all these men and women professional soccer players to have an impact. We can create young kids that go to college, kids who are successful in this community and can positively contribute to San Diego in the future.
Right. And maybe we can get it away from being a sport that's in the U.S. known as a rich white person sport, and it shouldn't be that.
It's too often that's the case. Right. And it shouldn't be that. There are so many children who don't have the opportunity because they can't pay $2,000 a year or $3,000 a year and pay for travel and gas money and all these things that come with it. So we are eliminating that. We will eliminate that, and kids will have the opportunity to come and get not only training and games, they will get mentoring, they will get fitness coaches, strength coaches, they will have emotional support, they will get everything they need to be successful in life.
Okay. For folks who don't follow soccer regularly, but who are enjoying watching the World Cup, can you give us a sense of why it matters if it's Major League Soccer versus some other pro soccer league playing here? Is there some kind of insight that you can give on that?
Sure. I guess the analogy for baseball would be a major league team like the Padres versus a single A or double A or triple A team. So if we want to be considered a a prominent city in the U.S., we need more than just the Padres here. I think everyone can agree on that. It was heartbreaking for all of us when the Chargers left.
Right. And
we have the opportunity to do something about that. And this is the only opportunity we will ever have to do something about that vis-a-vis soccer.
Yeah.
So if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, I think it's a big miss. And again, there could be other forms of soccer here, but it will never be at a major league level. And that's why we're so passionate about making this happen.
Great. Can you tell me on a personal level why you've gotten involved in this project and this campaign? I don't think you're a politics guy, but now you're becoming one by necessity. Why are you so excited to see MLS happen in San Diego?
Well, admittedly, I didn't know what all of this was going to entail when I started. I'm certainly not interested in the political side, but it is part of what we're doing. When I first met with Nick Stone, who's the project manager for Soccer City, he asked if I wanted to be a part of this project, and he kind of laid it out about how they would build a river park, maintain the river park for 99 years. Mm-hmm. They would give San Diego State a new stadium for their football team to play in. They would build a sports and entertainment district and bring an MLS team here. Right. And I said, okay, well, but what's it going to cost? And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I live in San Diego now. Right. So I'm a taxpayer. I know very well how sports teams get subsidized by cities, right. And I don't want to pay. I pay enough taxes in California. I don't want to pay more taxes. And he said, no, we're fully funding it privately. And I said, no, you're not. What's the cost? And he said, no, it's 100% fully funded. So I actually took some time, and I was skeptical because I know people have gone down that path before, and then cities end up subsidizing. And I realized that they want to do something special for this city. They want to leave a legacy. Guys like Steve Altman and Peter Seidler and Mike Stone, they don't need more. They don't even want fame or prestige. They'd rather be behind the scenes and nobody know who they are. They want to do something that leaves a legacy in San Diego for generations to come. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that project? So once I got to meet everybody and speak to them and realize what their intentions were and their goals were, it was an easy answer for me. Why wouldn't I want to be a part of something so special?
Thanks for listening to the Voice of San Diego podcast. This show is part of the Voice of San Diego podcast network. Visit voiceofsandiego.org/podcast to learn more about our education podcast, Good Schools for All, and our partner shows Beer Talk Radio, the Kept Faith Sports Podcast, and the rest of the shows in the network of local podcasts.